Let's watch some videos, man. We're gonna watch some reviews for Path of Exile. I've been playing this game kind of nonstop. I honestly think that Path of Exile is my new main game. If I wasn't playing World of Warcraft with friends, I think I would only be playing Path of Exile. That's my review right now. I'll have a more extensive review once I beat the end game of the game. But honestly, peak. So let's go watch this video. I think this is by a guy who is from like an actual news source from what I know. What's the name of this guy's channel? Paul Tassi. What's he from? I don't know what he's from. He's from something. He's actually part of like an actual thing. We're gonna watch this.
Alright, I am back with a new Path of Exile 2 video, which may end up being my last one for a while, which is unfortunate. I don't really want to make this video. I know it will probably get me yelled at a certain amount by existing fans.
This man's got Baby Yoda in the background. Look at that. Look at that cutie patootie.
Me a tourist or whatever. I'm a new player. I'm a new player to Path of Exile, so I can only give my take, but this is based on an article I wrote today about Path of Exile 2's endgame. And that was sort of a reaction to my own experience and then a video I watched from Kripp, who is a great YouTuber. I watched so much of his stuff during Diablo, and he's great. And he really articulates the issues that I'm having and made me feel like I'm not really alone. And the end result is like, I gotta stop playing this for the time being. Where I am currently at in the game, it does not seem like there's a reasonable path forward to continue. Again, this is early access. I will fully acknowledge that, and clearly it is an early access for a reason, because this endgame is like it's not it.
Like, where are you in the game though? That's the question I have.
For I would say the vast majority of players. I also think I have probably played more than a lot of, quote unquote average players. Not as much as, the 14, 15 hour a day grinding streamer guys, but probably more than a lot of people who have just been kind of, playing the early access when they have a free moment or two. This is my job, so I have had a lot more time. I've gone through the campaign 2 times, once on normal, once on cruel difficulty, which is ironic because cruel is much easier because your build is really ramped up by that point, where at lower levels.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. I was, cruel doesn't really mean anything right now. Cruel is by far an easier playthrough because like you're playing through acts 1, 2, and 3 again, and your build is built for acts 4, 5, and 6. So the whole starting area, it's like you start over on 1, and it is just a breeze if your build's like any good.
It can be really challenging. Kripp talks about how Act 2 was like the hardest the game was for him because you can be so underpowered at that point, especially melee, that you can't really do anything about it because you can't really farm up in a traditional sense in an act, because that's just not really how it's structured.
You can farm up in every act. I don't agree with that. You absolutely can farm. There were points where I hit walls and I had to farm for like maybe an hour or less. And as soon as I finished farming and I reassessed my build and rethought about it, and the great thing about PoE 2 is that I can change my talents, right? So I just change my talents and change my talents and change my talents until I feel like, oh, this is pretty sick, and then I stick with it, right? And that's how it's been throughout the playthrough ever since I stuck with the build. I got the build, and I'm like, I got an idea of what I want to do with it, and I pushed in through that from that. So I don't know if I agree with it. I mean, I think if you don't know how to reset maps, control click, by the way, control click the area. Maybe you would struggle, maybe you just, because it's not like told to you, there's no like tutorial saying you can control click maps. So maybe if you don't have any of that knowledge, it's a little harder, but I don't know.
So you are a little bit stuck until
The question is, should you have to grind? Probably not, but it is a game that is about grinding and killing monsters. So I don't know.
you figure out some of these fights. It was challenging. It was definitely, there were challenging aspects to it, especially in normal, and I'm okay with that. I do not need to be a Diablo 4 steamroller of just, blowing up entire screens of guys and, just not really feeling any challenge even at kind of the hardest difficulties. It's fun, certainly, but I appreciated Path of Exiles more kind of methodical pace. The bosses, which, maybe not fully Dark Souls, but that kind of idea where you learn their attack patterns, trial and error, all this stuff. So by the end, I was cruising. I think I beat all of the act bosses in anywhere from 1 to 3 tries with my Ranger build. And I was excited to get to the end game because, there's a ghost. Evie. She came. I felt my build was like, okay, I'm going to keep powering it up. I'm going to keep leveling up. And this end game looks really interesting. It's like this big map. You got all these different nodes. You plug in waystones for like different levels of challenge and things. And that sounded pretty cool to me. It seemed like a really interesting setup. There's a whole new skill tree for it. And I'm like, all right, let's take it on. This is nothing like the game that came before it. The main issues here are that all of these dungeons are now, or these maps are now one death over. You have 1 life, and if you die for any reason, you're out of the map. And not only are you out of the map, you can also no longer go back to that same map because it eats your waypoint token. So
right, I will say that's bad design. I'm not a big fan of one try Andy things. I'm not a huge fan of that. At least like 2 to 3. Like I think 2 to 3 is fair, but 1 try and done. I really hate that in most things. I hate that for pretty much everything that I do.
So you have to go grind out a new waypoint token, usually on a lower level, depending on how many of these you have, and then get back up to that tier, and then hope you don't die again. 1 death per level, especially at like the base levels of these, seems overly punishing. That is certainly not how the normal game worked.
It also feels like, I don't know, there's the same problem that like World of Warcraft has, where like keystone failure should be the punishment, not deranking your key. Like I hate deranking my key. It's like the worst thing ever in World of Warcraft, and I don't understand why they do it. Like I would prefer it be, oh, you can't do this. Well, you just didn't complete it. And like that's for me is punishment enough. Like getting rid of the item altogether is just kind of lame.
Any capacity, dying was like not the greatest because it would set you pretty far back on the map, and not only would you have to trek all the way back, but they would respawn all the enemies. It wasn't, it was kind of annoying, but it was fine. And then all the bosses, they were hard, but they would at least spawn you right outside again. You had a lot of boss fights or trial and error, learning their moves. Figuring out how to beat them, and unless you were just so powerful, you would tank a boss, one-shot a boss, whatever, really easily. They're certainly all about trial and error. The young game is not like this all, and the problem with the 1 death thing is, okay, maybe I could, that's a challenge, and it's not ideal, but you just play really, really carefully. Yes, but that only works to a point, and you will find at certain points in the game, kind of no matter what your build is, depending on where you are in the game, that it is possible to get 1 shot. And then the further you go, it almost becomes more possible.
I think getting 1 shot in PoE 2 is bad. I think it shouldn't happen. It should never happen. And I feel like the reason for that is because the game is so hard and so stringent and such a slower paced game that like having things that 1-shot you is generally bad. Like I'm down for like a boss hitting me for 99.9% of my HP. And if I don't hit a potion right then, I'm dead, right? I that's fine because it's not a 1-shot. But like getting killed and not being able to like respond at all, like not having a response or being able to respond, like I hate that so much.
Because of enemy damage scaling. And that's certainly true on a Ranger, which, relies on kind of dice roll evasion to get around stuff. And obviously on melee, you're getting hit a lot more. So not only are you losing a map, but like any rogue hit from any big enemy can theoretically kill you. And I'm like, okay, well, this isn't great, and I don't really love how this is going, but is this just the beginning? Like, am I just not strong enough to be taking this on, even if I am kind of at the lower ranks? And like, yeah, I was beating some of the lower maps and stuff, but then you'd take a 1 hit and then, lose your stone, and now I'm out of...
The title of this video is going to be Path of Exile's endgame is fucking terrible.
Stones and trying to figure out what
People
to do.
People will be so mad.
And then I watched the Kripp video, and the Kripp video kind of laid everything out. It is the video that just straight up made me like, Yeah, I'm out. Okay. Like this is not something I want to play. The issue there is like the long and short is it doesn't get any better from here. It gets worse. And what Kripp explains is that the further you get into this, uh, the deaths get more and more punishing. So everything is, one death, you're out of the map. But you get further in, you start losing XP, and Lord knows how hard it is to, gain XP at higher levels already. So you'll lose some percentage of your XP if you die. You will not only lose your higher tier waystone, but in some of these places you will lose all of the connecting points to like where you just got to. So you'll have to replay those maps to get all the way back up to what you need. And in those lower maps, according to him, like you're not farming anything remotely at all that you need. So you could do that for an hour, get all the way there, die again, go back. You've lost XP. So like you can actually be behind where you started at that tier. And like as annoying as it is to have to start a map over and lose your waystone,
XP loss is a bad thing. Like, it's not just bad. It's like, it's kind of archaic. Like, I don't really care because, like, I mean, honestly, like, I'm probably never going to, in a season, get to the point where I'm playing so hardcore and so consistently that, like, it's going to bother me. But, like, just the thought of it, right? Like, I think World of Warcraft, like, eventually, I'm going to compare to World of Warcraft because World of Warcraft, like, in its early development, like, they had the same type of idea, like, if you died, you would lose XP to a certain degree, and you'd get penalties and you down level. Like fucking, I hate that shit. Like, who the fuck likes that? There's no one who actually likes that. The people who say they like it are just fucking trying to defend Path of Exile. They're trying to defend PoE to like the 100th degree, and they think that their game has no problems and is perfect when they know it sucks. They know that part of it sucks, but like, and everyone knows that sucks. Like, losing XP for dying is just stupid. And it shouldn't be a thing.
that sounds infinitely more annoying the higher you get. The second thing he verifies is that this one-shotting thing is not going to stop. Like, not really in any build. He's talking about how, like, you have to build for, like, 3,000 HP, like, all the armor you can, max resistance, all of the stuff. And even then, you can still get one-shot or at least killed in very cheap ways. And he talks about floor effects that you can barely even see that kill you, or enemy attacks that are not telegraphed, or elite modifiers that you have to like fully understand as they're running towards you that you can't avoid because there are no movement skills in this game. And he talks about how
there are movement skills. There are. At least for my warrior, there is this thing called leap, and it is faster than just dodge rolling or just moving, right? It is a faster mechanic. I have no idea what it is for other players. Movement speed is extremely important. Obviously, build movement speed into your build. But I do have movement abilities that are really good. Like I would say maybe Heroic Leap is the best one. Because I don't know if there's any other ones, but I do know Leap is an ability and it's really fast.
The entire game essentially is based around dodge rolls and not screwing up dodge rolls. Because if you are in a situation where you can get one hit, the only way you can always avoid that theoretically is hitting every dodge roll perfectly. And obviously I know there are like these highest tier guys who are like have the best builds in the world and are like crazy APM dodge roll folks, but like Kripp is a top tier player, and if he's saying this, and I've seen other top players saying this too, like what hope do any of us have? And it's enough to just sort of make me stop playing.
We're not tuning that, right?
I don't see a reason to keep going here if it's not really even about getting stronger. If it's not like I just am, not skilled enough or whatever because I don't hit every single dodge roll in every single map. Like that to me is nothing like what I've played so far. And I feel like I've heard some people pushing back on this. Asmongold made a video about Kripp's video. Of course, I guess I'm doing that here, but I'm not playing Kripp's video. Where he's like, oh, like it's not that hard. Like he's complaining too much. And like both Asmongold switched off of a warrior because it was too hard and switched to something else. And also like a lot of the people complaining are not in the end game. They might be on cruel difficulty or something like, well, I'm on cruel difficulty and this game isn't hard at all. It's like, yeah, that's true. Cruel difficulty was not very hard, but you get into the end game, you play an hour of that and figure out like how this is going and how this.
I want to know whether or not this guy is in the end game actually, or if he's just watching Kripparian's video. Like that means a lot to the context of this, because so far it just sounds like he's watched a video and that video has turned him off from playing the game. Now, if you've gone into the game and you've played the end game and you've felt this and you've personally experienced this, then cool. And the reason why I say this is because game reviewers, I'm guessing this guy is a reviewer of some sort, writes articles for a site. I'm assuming, I mean, I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but like, I don't know. Most reviewers kind of suck. So, like, I don't know. I'm not trying to say you suck, man, but, like, can you show me that you've played the game? Like, pull up the fucking game, go do a map for this video. Like, I would love to see that.
This is going to work. I think you will probably end up being where I'm at. And the thing is like, I don't want to abandon this game. Like, I really enjoy Path of Exile. I had a great time with the 50 whatever hours I put in it to beat both stages of the campaign. I'm just so disappointed that the end result of this is essentially like a non-functional end game where it doesn't seem remotely worth trying to play it, especially solo. I would love for stuff to be overhauled to the point where it actually feels rewarding for, you know, the pretty decent, you know, if I'm steamrolling everything on Cruel, I'd at least like to, you know, participate in the end game in a more meaningful extent than like, you know, just the base lower tier ones. And even those, if you step the wrong way, you can lose. And there's nothing, you know, you can really do about your build to fully change that, according to, you know.
Aren't you also playing, you said you're playing a Ranger, right? Isn't that one of the best builds in the game right now? I don't know. I feel like this guy just hasn't played in-game. That's the vibe I'm getting, is that he just hasn't played the end game, and he's just like going off a video he watched.
You know, other people. I can imagine maybe this will be fixed and overhauled over time. I looked at what they're changing in the end game, and it was just like, we're adding more rare packs so you can finish maps faster or something like that. And like, they didn't address anything about difficulty or whatever. And like,
they did. I think recently in the most recent patch update, they were like, hey, yeah, we're gonna remove on death effects. So if you don't know, there's these things that happen whenever you kill a monster. They like explode, or like they spawn an item that like flies at you. They said they're gonna remove the frequency of those things, which is good because those things kind of suck. They do. I mean, like, you kill a monster and then you think you're all good, then it explodes. Like, no one likes that. No one likes ooze explosions from D&D. Like, no one likes that shit.
To be clear, I'm not anti-difficulty. There were very, very challenging parts in this game, in the early campaign, especially when you don't have the build, that a lot of trial and error, really, you know, kind of frustrating stuff, but you overcome, you change your strategies, whatever. But if in the campaign, if I died to a boss and it kept sending me back to the previous map every single death, I would be like, screw this, I'm out of here. But that's essentially what the end game is. I don't know how much it'll change. It, like, the one death map thing seems kind of baked into the mode. So maybe at best they nerf enemy damage.
They can add charges. They can add charges
more reasonable, so you're just not always getting one shot. One thing that actually does scale pretty well is enemy health. Like, my build was actually doing still really good damage to these higher level enemies. I thought that was a really good aspect of it. But if you're just
God, that's the worst feeling ever in D4, going into a place that you haven't gone into yet and the fucking mob's HP don't even move. Like, that's the worst feeling.
Going to be one shot with every attack you can't dodge roll out of, or like fighting a boss where you don't know the mechanics and the first attack kills you. Like, what are you supposed to do about that? And the analogy I like that I put in my article is like, it's like an Elden Ring, you know, a very challenging game that people love and like overcoming the challenge. If you fought Millennia for the first time and died and it reset, it took all of your runes and it erased all sites of grace on that part of the map. Like, that is the equivalent of this here, where I think it's great that games can be challenging, but if they just put in things that are irritating and exhausting and progress erasing for its own sake, like, no, I'm not. Yeah. I'm not going to.
I think that's a fair criticism. Fair.
A literal waste of my time.
Absolute
if I can play a significant amount of a game and essentially get nothing for it. Like, at least right now I'm getting some XP, but if I start losing XP, what am I doing at all at that point? So that's why I'm done for now. I would love to come back to this. It's early access. You know, they're going to make big changes to this and that. And there's more campaign to add. I'd love to play more campaign because that was definitely the most fun I had. But I'm curious how everyone else feels about the end game. If you're running into some of the same issues I have, if you are there, or if you're not there yet, check back when you are, and you can see if you agree with me here. So anyway,
I don't know if I agree with you because I don't think you've actually played the end game. I think you watched a video. and made some opinions on it. And I think that's fair. You can have your own opinions by watching what other people's experiences are. I think you should have your own experiences. Maybe show people that you know how to play the game. Then there'd be less confrontation on your points. People are just assuming that you don't know how to play the game or you're not trying. And you are playing one of the best classes in the game right now, so that's that, right? Overall, I don't think that your points are bad. I think your points are very valid, right? I don't think that anyone wants to spend their time being wasted going into a map and then losing. Like, valid points, 100%. Yeah. So that's all I got to say, really.